10 of Self-Esteem and Peak Performance by Jack Canfield. On this side, you will hear Jack's answers to a wide range of questions pertaining to building and maintaining healthy self-esteem, including how do you give yourself a quick self-esteem check? How can you build a more positive attitude? And how can you channel anger towards a positive outcome? Here's Jack Canfield with Questions and Answers, Part 1, as Career Track's Self-Esteem and Peak Performance continues.
Wouldn't it be more effective to confront negative thoughts that come into your head rather than deflect or cancel them?
Well, let me answer that in two ways, yes and no, okay? And now let me expand on that. Yes, in the sense that much of what comes up in our head as negative thoughts come from the past, okay? Like they come from past programming from your parents. Like I might be doing something and I hear this little voice says, I'm stupid. Well, where did I originally get that? Sometimes I decided I was stupid because of something that happened to me. Sometimes people told me, you're stupid. Now, why don't we have such a stupid kid? You know, if your brain wasn't attached, you know, you'd probably forget it, that kind of thing. So what happens there is that confronting that as an internal process where I might go inside and say, well, wait, where did I get that? Well, that comes from my father. Well, my father wasn't always right. Maybe I don't need to listen to that. You know, my father was upset when he told me that. I'll give you an example of a time in a seminar when I was working with a person who was very stiff and had no sense of humor. And it turned out that when he was a little kid, as we were talking, you know, his self-talk was, oh, I shouldn't say that. He was going to say something funny, then I shouldn't say that. And so we shared that with the group and we started to process it. What we realized was that when he was a little child, he had been out on a playground. And he had a kid come up to him and say, go take a long walk off a short pier. And they thought it was funny. And he didn't know it wasn't funny. He didn't know it was funny. He just didn't know what it was. So he laughed because he wanted to be, you know, approved of. And he goes home that night, and his father said something to him at the dinner table. And he thought he'd say something to see if his father would laugh. So he said, Dad, go take a long walk off a short pier. And his dad freaked out. You know, he just wasn't in the mood to be talked back to that way. The kid didn't even know he'd done it. But he smacked the kid and said, you go to your room and you think about what you said. Well, the kid goes to his room, and what he thinks about is, wow, can't win. You know, I better not ever try to be funny again, okay? So whenever a funny thought would come to him, he would censor it, if you will, with a negative thought. And so that kind of getting in touch with that literally can root out the source of that thought. But my experience is, in a day-to-day level, it's not that easy to do that. The thought comes up, and given that you're in the middle of a staff meeting, or you're about to say something, or you're in a conversation with somebody, you don't always have the time to confront, if you will, that thought and analyze it to death back to where it came from. It's something you can do on your own. But in a day-to-day situation, I teach people, as I did earlier in the program, to say things like cancel, cancel, when a negative thought comes up, and then replace it with a positive thought. Or if the negative thought is coming from someone else, to say silently to yourself, no matter what you say or do to me, I'm still a worthwhile person, and just let that kind of, you know, as our parents taught us, let it run off your back like water off a duck's back, and just let it go. So I think in general,